Hello everyone and welcome to Extreme Graphics Tech. My name is Angelo, and after last week's analysis or little technical analysis of Batman Arkham City, it was obvious that I was going to continue the series with Batman Arkham City. And this game came out in 2011, just 2 years after the first game, and in that amount of time the people at Rocksteady was able to really improve the game, not just in gameplay wise but also graphically. And the port to PC is quite good, or was actually very good at the time. They even embrace a lot of technologies that for some is gimmicky at the time, like the NVIDIA physics and so on, which when you see that working here, it's not game changing, but it adds an extra layer of immersion or quality in the physics department with the clothes and also like the paper and other things going on that you don't see anymore in games. Even new games don't seem to embrace physics as much as they did back then, even if it doesn't bring anything to gameplay. I mean, it's not always necessary to put some physics, but it's fun to have those little details. In any case, the thing is that Rocksteady really brought their A game to the continuation, and this game came also in the generation of Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. So seeing how much evolution there is in just 2 years is really staggering. To begin with, you can see or you have been able to see that the first thing I was able to notice in the improvement is the fact that now a skin is much better. Now characters are more believable. Before, Unreal had this particular metallic, plastic, weird look that made everything look like some sort of, plastic character. But here, even though it's not perfect, it's much better, much improved. There is more details, there is more geometric density on everything. It looks so much better. Also, textures were improved like a lot. There is more variety, and even though it still keeps that sort of look that it was in 2000s with these all like brownish sort of things, you can see that there is like more color applied thanks to like lightning and stuff. Talking about lightning, you can see this here, this cone of light. That's one of those things that, well, it was typical at the time. The cone of light is very clear, it's not like diffuse or anything, but
if there's one person
lightning is still very improved. If you see the city now, the scope of the game is much bigger, and you can see more lights that influence the everything around. Of course, most of it is baked, but even so, you can, while you're playing, you can see light affecting more the characters and casting shadows, things that were not in the first game, at least not for most of them. Now we can see this better in this game. It happens more often. We see different kind of effects and things, so it's so much better. Also, when we talk about like animation, now it doesn't look as cyclical. Here you can see something of the physics I was talking about that is part of what the game offers in NVIDIA. So talking about the animation, I was saying that now, even though it's still cyclical, it's less evident than in the first game. The first game has a weird cadence when it comes to the physics of the character running or walking or combining different movement. Now, even though I still think it works by keyframes and they are not really merged, it's much better. Here you can see what I was talking about, the faces and the skin tones. It's much improved compared to the first game. However, this game still has some of the problems of that era. I don't know if it's called problem or maybe the limitation of the technology or what they were trying to achieve. Here you can see the light affecting the character, but also there are parts where they try to like mimic HDR sort of style, and I'm not talking about the HDR we know now with 4K monitors, but or TVs. It's more that very bright area, but that very bright area sort of burns the image. No, it was part of what they were trying to do and the technology and the things that were cool at the time, but I think they didn't. It hasn't aged very well. I think that sort of thing was introduced by Half-Life 2, and then every game wanted to try and copy that. So it's not the best, but it's not bad. You can see here how some of the characters are casting shadows from the lights. Some of them at the distance are not. You can see that. But however, one thing I have to say is that in this game, there is one thing that I hate, despise about games right now, modern games, and it's the popping and the draw distance. It's so annoying to see things popping in front of you. I could not notice this happen here. It's obvious that it happened somehow, but I don't know what technique they use to just avoid that to be so evident. So it's quite good in that regard from my point of view. You can see that maybe the objects don't appear, and maybe they are very low in quality and they start improving regularly. I'm not sure, but at least it's much better than in many new games that you can see basically things appearing in front of your eyes, which makes me a little bit crazy. So you can see here what I was saying. You see the light is very clear, it's very strong, and it's not diffused or anything. And that's because that's not really a light. We could say it's more like a cone of colors that change the environment in order to make the illusion of light, but it's not really a lightning. But it's interesting in this case. You can see how the character is casting shadow on itself, which is something that we don't sometimes see even on new titles. And this game is still made in Unreal Engine 3, so we can see that Rocksteady is getting hold of the technology and being able to push it much further away, compared to the first game. So that's a very, very good thing, and I'm quite impressed by what they were able to achieve in just 2 short years. In a time where you need like 6 or 7 years to see the continuation of a game, and sometimes it's just more of the same, the changes between the first and second game are really big. Another part, and this is more gameplay than technical, but that I like, is the fact that even though this game, many games, especially things like Metroid, when you start, and they always have this tendency to reset the character, right? Like, okay, let's lose all the gadgets and stuff so you can get it, and that's part of the gameplay. But what this game did is that they didn't do that exactly, so you have all the gadgets from the first game, so you don't have to find them again. What you're doing now is improving on those gadgets, so you get more gadgets or more abilities with the same gadgets, which I think is a genius, because it doesn't get into the same situation as the first game. So it's making you like find new things, and it feels more like a continuation, like a progression from the first game than just a new game that is repeating what they did on the first one. As I said, this game has a bigger scope. You can see now you are basically on a open world game. It's not super massive, but it's quite decent size, and you can go anywhere, and you have a lot more activities than you had on the first game. So that's quite a good thing from a gameplay perspective. And as I said, this game has a better look, better graphics in general, more geometry the textures are better, color wise is not as brownish as the first game, and everything seems to be more grounded in reality, even though there is some things are missing shadows sometimes. It still looks quite good. So when we talk about performance now for these games, the first thing I would recommend is for you to go and get the advanced game launcher for this game on PC, which will allow you to change some options and improve upon them, especially for the frame rate. You can see here with the RTX 4090 that I'm limited to 60 to 62. The reason is, well, I don't know, it's a VSync weird issue. But if you want to go above 60 FPS, then you need to use this utility so you can set the frame rate at anything you want. Obviously, with a computer like this nowadays, you won't have any problems running this at 144 Hz 4K, everything maxed out without any issues whatsoever. Well, it's the least you can expect when you're playing a 2011 game with an RTX 4090. But I would say that even so, this game still looks quite attractive, quite spectacular, and if you are able to max out the quality, then this is something quite nice. As you can see here, the game is beyond some stuttering probably created by loading or something like that. There is no really big issue, so the game will run very smooth and on a combination of different hardware. And actually, I'm going to show you how it behaves on some more common cards, including as always the RX 750. So here I tested the RX 750 as I was saying, and you can see that I already used the advanced game launcher to unlimit the frame, and you can see we're over 80 frames per second over 60 frames per second all time at 1440p ultra without the physics active, because that requires an Nvidia card, otherwise it would go to the CPU, and I didn't want to do that because I thought it could skew the results. And as you can see here, there is no problems whatsoever for this game to be played like this. However, I have to say I'm a little bit, still not perfect, because, well, we know Arc is not working very well with all APIs, even though this one is using DirectX 11 instead of DirectX 9 as it was in the first game. So when you try to play the game at 4K, it becomes completely unplayable, and I think there is a problem or a bug on the drivers that create this, because I'm going to test after this with the RTX 2060, and we know for a fact that an R750 is more powerful than even a 3060, or at least equal, so we should expect same results, but that was not the case. But at 1440p you won't have any issues with the R750. So as I was saying here, I'm playing with the 2060 with everything ultra, all physics. Yes, we are not at 60 FPS. We can get over 60 FPS from time to time, but I will say that the game stays at around 50 FPS, 50 to 55. But the reason I tested like this was to make a comparison between the 2060 6GB and the Arc 750. The Arc should have been better, but I can assure you that if you play with the Arc at 4K, there is a lot of issues with the game. It goes as low as 10 FPS, and I suppose this is a driver problem related to the API and the Arc not being able to manage this sort of resolution for those old games, because it's not the only game that this has happened. So you go from 4K, you cannot play, then you play at 1440p, and it's all perfect. So there has to be some sort of bottleneck when it comes to going to higher resolutions. It could be maybe bandwidth or something, but it's evidently a problem with the driver. However, as I said, with the 2060 you will be able to play this game at 1440p, also no problems whatsoever at more than 60 FPS if that is what you want. Then I was able to test this game with the Steam Deck. Well, I thought it was going to be a little better, to be honest. It's not bad, but it's not what I was expecting. It's 1080p in this case because I'm playing on a monitor. Of course, if you're going to play this game portable, it's going to work at 60 FPS. No doubt, no problem whatsoever, because you're going to be playing at around 800p at max. However, if you're playing like on a monitor, external monitor, and you want a better resolution, and you go to 1080p, then the game won't really be at 60 FPS most of the time. It will be around 50 to 45 to 50. You can get to 60 from time to time, but it's not going to be often. I was expecting, honestly, considering it's a 2011 game, to be able to achieve this. Well, you can lower the resolution obviously, or lower the quality, but what I did is, if you activate VRS, the variable rate shade, then the game tends to stay at 60 FPS quite most of the time, no problem. However, the problem is that VRS introduces a problem where the image look a little bit pixelated and the textures and other areas look a little bit worse. So I don't know what is better, to activate VRS or to just go to 900p and activate FSR, to be honest. It will depend where you're playing. I guess this won't notice if you're playing portable, but if you're playing portable, you're already playing at 800p, so you won't need this. So it's a little bit of a trade-off, and you have to find out. And I guess it's not because the Steam Deck cannot. Remember, Steam Deck uses a layer, compatibility layer, and so probably this game is not one of the best optimized one when it comes to translating the API or the layer between the game and the Steam Deck. So that, I don't think it's because of lack of power, because we know the Steam Deck for games like this is more than enough today. Even if we can play things like The Witcher 3 and other stuff in there, this should be more playable. But well, I guess there is that little bottleneck. Anyway, I think it's still excellent. You are going to be able to play it, no problems. And if you don't mind 30 FPS or 40, you can limit it, and you are going to get a very, very, very good experience. So well, guys, I hope you like this little technical retro analysis that I'm doing. Obviously, the next game we're going to be doing is Batman Arkham Knight. That was a very infamous port at the time. Let's see how it goes today. And I hope, as usual, that you like my videos, that you subscribe, and please share it, because it helped me. Well, I love doing these little videos for you, and to remember some of these great games that we used to play a long time ago, and see them with new eyes and new hardware. So what do you think of these games and everything that it has to offer? and see you on the next video.